Welcome to Big Picture Walks. This time I'm interested in the fundamental question on what was the drive behind development of the human civilization. What was the force that enabled us to do all these things we did, to build a global civilization, to achieve technological progress and economic growth? Why did we bother to do that? We cannot really approach this question without going back to some of the most fundamental philosophical questions, like what is the meaning of human life? What is the objective that we would like to pursue? What are our goals, okay? So you see, I'm approaching the question of the meaning of life, and I'm approaching it from a different angle than people usually do, okay? I'm not a philosopher, it's not a late night conversation with friends and so on, so you may sometimes take on questions like this. No, I'll have a more applied perspective, if you like, so I would like to understand what it was that brought us to the place we are now. Okay, what it was that enabled us to build a civilization. The natural starting point is to ask how we arrived to the position of a dominant species on Earth. And this is a simple question in the sense that we all know that this is because of species evolution. We have evolved to be what we are, and we could not do ourselves anything in this regard. It just was an outcome of the process of evolution. I argued in a different episode of the series that one of the reasons why we're here is that we've passed the threshold of cumulative knowledge accumulation in what we know as cognitive revolution. Okay? The cognitive revolution was about 70,000 years ago. So what is the meaning of life? So there have been many angles on that. There have been many answers to this question. Let me single out five, okay? Five different ways of tackling this question. So the first approach is the Darwinist approach, which would say that basically our goal, the meaning of our life, the purpose of our life, is merely to survive and multiply, pass the genes to the next generation. And while we're doing this, we may also have some auxiliary goals that we pursue just to facilitate survival, okay, and multiplication. Even more in more detail, if you look at that, you can also take the argument by Richard Dawkins, who said that maybe it's not even us, maybe it is our genes. The genes treat us as a vehicle to be transferred into the future, into the further generations. The second perspective is characteristic to economics, to the orthodoxy in economics. And that perspective basically says that what we do is to maximize utility. Okay, you maximize expected, discounted utility over a certain stretch of time, either to infinity or throughout your lifetime or in some time horizon. What this means is that we have some specific preferences. We are aware of these preferences, but they are innate in us. We cannot change them, and that's what we do. Okay, and so the progress of the whole civilization was because of people doing what's best for themselves, maximizing their utility. One thing that can be added, though, is you don't really need to imply that this is necessarily selfish utility. You could have altruistic motives within your utility structure as well. So this is tackled well by this perspective. Anyway, third perspective is a bit more contentious. The third perspective is a religious one. Okay, so you may draw ideas on the meaning of life, on the goals of life, on the purpose of life from your religion. Okay, so there are various religions, and each of them puts it differently. But you know, in a way, your goal has to be a good person, not to sin, to redeem your sins and go to heaven, or maybe from a different perspective, achieve transcendence, lasting peace of mind, and so on. So you have these religious perspectives that have a say on what the purpose of life is. Now, you also can have the humanist perspective. The humanist perspective emphasizes that we have freedom to choose our goals ourselves. We take responsibility for what we do, but we have this freedom of choice. We have free will, if you like. Okay? Fifthly, there is also this modern philosophical perspective that free will is merely an illusion. And in fact, we don't really have free will. So we have the illusion that we can choose our goals, but in fact, what is happening is some kind of biochemical processes in our brains, a mixture of random events and predetermined causes, and the outcome is that we say that, okay, I would like to do this, I would like to do that. It may be just an illusion. So if you're pondering the question of what is the purpose of life, what are the goals in our lives, and you would like to act on the answers to these questions, then I don't have any clear answer to you. However, there is a very interesting insight that is helpful when you're not as interested in your own life, okay, in putting your life into order. What you're really interested is the macro questions of development of the human civilization. And if you take a look from this perspective, it may be the case that the actual answer is not that important. And a surprising insight in this regard comes from the literature on artificial intelligence. Namely, Nick Bostrom and Stephen Omohundro have come across a very interesting finding for artificial intelligence, but in my view, it is something more general that can be applied to any optimizing process, and in particular, it can be also applied to any biological life, ourselves included. So what is it? Okay, I'm talking about the instrumental convergence thesis. The instrumental convergence thesis, originally formulated for AI, is a thesis that no matter what the final goal is, there will be convergence in terms of auxiliary goals. So whatever the final goal is of an optimizing entity, it will also pursue 4 instrumental goals. Firstly, it would like to survive, and that's obvious why, because if you're after any goal, you're much better off when you're still pursuing this goal. If you stop pursuing the goal because you're not alive, no longer there, no longer active, then it compromises your goal. Okay, and that also includes goal content integrity, meaning that you will actively oppose changing your goal, because that's opposing your actual goal that you're supposed to pursue. Secondly, there is this drive for efficiency. You would like to use the resources you have in the most efficient way. You would like to be as effective in pursuing the goal given the means you have as possible. The third auxiliary goal is technological perfection or creativity, a drive for improvement in the ways of doing things. So you would like to forego a bit of your resources to experiment and to invent new, better ways of performing the goal. Okay? So at the macro scale, if you think about the human civilization, that would correspond to some research, some experimentation, some science. Finally, the fourth instrumental goal is resource acquisition. No matter what your goal is, you're much better at performing it if you have more resources. So you would like to be greedy, you would like to have more and more resources because that will help you in your goal. A very important characteristic of the instrumental convergence thesis is that it is general. It applies to almost any final goal. Okay, there are specific counterexamples, very carefully crafted. You could think of, a goal to minimize energy use, and then maybe the best thing to do is just to switch off immediately. But outside of these very strange and unusual goals, typically for almost any goal you can think of, there will be instrumental convergence. So an interesting insight from the instrumental convergence thesis is that it may be the case that no matter what our actual goal is, no matter what is that we really maximize, we may be not aware of that, we may not even have any goal at all, maybe there is no meaning of life at all, okay, but no matter what we maximize, for a very broad class of potential functions that we could potentially maximize, we will still pursue the 4 instrumental goals. To have a nice label on the totality of all 4 instrumental goals, I will call that local control maximization. So I would say that any entity that has these 4 instrumental goals pursues local control maximization. My thesis is that we also pursue local control maximization. And why do I call it local control? Well, for 2 reasons. First of all, that if you want to survive, if you want more resources, if you want more efficiency, if you want more creativity, it's clearly that you want more control. Intuitively, it seems that this is what we're doing. And the local, the adjective local that I use here is to emphasize that we only have local control, that we can only locally affect the environment, affect our surroundings. We do what we can to have more resources, to be more efficient, to be more creative, and basically to live longer, but we are limited in our skills and abilities, and so our actions will for sure have unintended consequences. An important characteristic of the instrumental convergence thesis is emergence. Local control maximization is an emergent drive. We don't need to pursue it consciously. We may perceive different life goals, and different people can also perceive differently what the meaning of their life is. Still, if they also satisfy the criteria of the thesis, we will still pursue local control maximization. So if you ask me what the meaning of life is, I would say, from the perspective of the development of the human civilization, I don't care. I am really interested if we satisfy the criteria of instrumental convergence, and I bet we do. There is a very nice observation related to local control maximization. Namely, it's a process that has escaped evolution for the reason of being much faster, order of magnitude faster. It has the ability to self-improve, and it wants resources. So you may say that species evolution was a runaway routine of the general laws of physics, and now human local control maximization is a runaway routine of species evolution. We are not acting in favor of evolution. We are acting in favor of local control maximization that is in our minds, that is a part of being human. Like it or not, you're in it. Now, you may also wonder if other species pursue local control maximization. After all, they don't build civilizations, they don't develop technology. Okay, so do they also pursue this, or are they more limited in their goals? And my tackle of this question is that, in fact, yes, they do. They're just bad at it. Okay, they do exhibit creativity, they do exhibit efficiency drives, and so on. Our advantage in this regard is that we have come through the cognitive revolution, and other species have not. We have achieved the ability of cumulative knowledge accumulation across generations, across millennia. Other species have not, and that's what distinguishes us. Fun facts! It may be the case that we will develop a new process that will run away from our local control maximization process, just as the local control maximization process ran away from the evolution process. I mean artificial general intelligence. It is possible, not certain by any means, but it is possible that one day the human civilization will give rise to a new intelligent process which would be able to proceed orders of magnitude faster, would also exhibit instrumental convergence and run away from our local control maximization. So it will basically do similar things, but in a much more efficient way. Do you like the conclusion? That's all for today. please like, comment, share, and subscribe.